So, Akash, Deepti, Abdullah, you guys here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sure. Okay. So we'll start with this. We'll be discussing on active and passive. But both of them are very simple topics. Subject-verb agreement, you might have already, if you had taken the English one course already, you might have gone through them there as well. So we'll look at both of them today. Just basically brush up what we have understood in the previous sessions. And yes, a couple of things. Okay. So first we're going to look at the active and passive voice, right? So you know what active and passive voice means, like you will know what's the practical usage of passive voice, right? So what is a passive voice? Usually in your day-to-day situations, passive voice is usually used when somebody doesn't want to mention the agent, right? So the part that happens in a passive voice is the omission of the agent, right? Why do people do that? It's because so they have like some tailor-made situations where you use passive voices. Mostly you see them in the media language, right? Or say people who work in politics, right? You use them, or even by us, ordinary people, we also do that. When do we do that? So whether you are a media person or you're a politician or you're anybody ordinary, any ordinary person, right? Why would you use that? You usually use it when you do not want to take up a direct responsibility of something, right? When you don't want to mention who the agent is. So not mentioning the agent basically is omitting the doer of the action, like putting out the responsibility. Either you do it for others or you do it for yourself, right? So major reason for usage of passive voice is to omit or to surpass the agent, right? To not take up responsibility for the action. This is the practical usage, and one can find several situations in your day-to-day life where you have to do that. So passive voice is sometimes then also used for what is referred to as softening in language, right? When you don't want to be too direct about something, you can, especially the doer of the action, then you use your passive voice. So this is the basic function that you can use, that passive voice performs in any language. And this is not something that is only specific to English. Languages across the world will have this feature of using passive voice, right? It's a technique in most of the languages. So it's about the function, the practical function of passive voice. Now, grammatically, what happens? Your passive voice, two things majorly happens in a passive voice, right? Just two things. First one is that your agent is removed, right? So the if the subject and the agent coincides, right? So if the doer of the action is same as that of as same as the subject of the sentence, then you see that there is a slight, not slight, there is a reverse in the position that it occupies, right? The subject still remains the same, right? Nothing happens to the subject. Even if you convert the sentence into a passive voice, the subject still remains the same. It's just that in some cases you just omit the subject altogether. You don't mention the subject, okay, or the doer of the action. But in all sentences, the doer of the action and the subject needn't coincide. There could be sentences where you have one logical subject, right? But the performer of the action could be something else, right? So keep in mind, when you talk about passive voice, this is more about grammatical function. So in grammar, you will definitely have one, every sentence needs to have a subject. So whether practically that particular entity is the doer of the action or not, or is the subject or not, doesn't matter. If it occupies the subject position, then grammatically it is treated as the subject, right? So this position can be reversed in passive voice. Grammatically, whatever your grammatical subject is in the sentence, it changes its position, right? The traditional method of putting this is, some people would say the subject becomes the object, right? Now there's a problem with this. Nothing happens to the subject. The subject doesn't become the object. That's not how it works. Okay. It just switches the position, and that happens because of the morphological changes that happens to the verb in the sentence. The subject practically in the sentence is not changing. It remains the same. It only the grammatical subject changes its position due to the change that happens to the verb. That's all. Okay. So, which is one reason why you should stay away from, making a comment like, in passive voice, the subject becomes object, right? This is how traditionally we have been taught, and this is what we are made to understand. But the risk with such an explanation is, it is wrong, first of all. That is not how it works. The subject will never change in the sentence. It remains. It's only the position that's altered owing to the changes that happen to the verb. Okay, the morphology of the verb. So, okay, so having talked about that, so that's the first thing, right? The position changes. The second thing, the second change that you would see is directly related to the verb of the sentence, right? So you see on your screen what happens. So you have a verb like opens. So it can change to is or are opened, or was or were opened, right? Based on the tense that you're using. Sold can change to was or were sold, or is or are sold, right? Is or are seeking, is are being sought, right? Has, have, had given, has, have, had been given. Will deliver, will be delivered. Okay, haven't included the passive for all the tenses because I have only used the most commonly used ones. There are constructions possible with others, but they are not very common usages in English. The one that you see on the screen are the most commonly found passive constructions or passive construction in different tenses, most common. Okay. So if you observe the change that happens to the passive voice, what do you see? From opens, it becomes is, are, open. So what is happening? You have added an auxiliary, right? One form of the be form of the verb, right? So here is or are. Suppose I'm using is opened. So the form of the be used here is, and then you have opened. Okay. Now this is not the past tense of opens. What is this? This is the past participle form. So you have is or are plus open, that is auxiliary, plus the participle form. So be plus participle form is the change that happens to the verb here. Any verb is converted to its participle form in the passive voice, right? So this is for the present tense. For the past tense, it changes to was, were, told. In the present continuous form, it becomes is, are, being, sought. So be plus ing plus the participle form, right? So is represents the tense, ing represents your aspect, the continuous aspect, and then the participle form sought. Similarly, for has, have, and had, you have the has, have, had, which is the tense. Been for the been given becomes your participle form, right? Same for the last one, will deliver. Will showing you the tense, and be delivered taking the be plus participle form. Okay. So the major change that happens to verb is then the conversion of the verb to participle form of the same verb. Okay, whatever the tense and aspect of the verb in the active sentences, you convert. You don't change the tense, you don't change the aspect, that remains. All you do is you convert that into the participle form of the same verb, right? So this is the major change, the second major change that happens in any passive voice, right? And then the third one, a byproduct of some sort for all of this is, so now you have changed the subject position. You know that the subject is going to change, the grammatical subject. Okay, this is important. Grammatical subject changes its position. Now, this grammatical subject, which becomes the grammatical object after the conversion into passive voice, it is sometimes accommodated in the sentence using a by phrase, right? So the snake was killed by the boy. Okay, the boy killed a snake. That's your active sentence. The snake was killed by the boy. So this by the boy is called the by phrase in a passive sentence. Sometimes it is included. Okay, so it's a this is basically what now you understand what an adjunct and complement are like. So this by phrase is mostly an adjunct. So by which we mean it's optional. You may or may not include it. Only in cases where you think mentioning that is important, you use that. But actually the sentence could very well be the snake was killed. Okay, you don't even have to say by the boy, not required, right? And even if you use it in the sentence that you write after you convert it into the passive voice, it is still treated as an adjunct in that particular sentence, because the sentence is complete and it makes sense even without the presence of that by phrase, right? So this is what your basic understanding about passive voice should be, right? First one about the shift in the position of the grammatical subject and object, right? Not the actual subject needed. It's not necessary that your actual subject is same as the grammatical subject all the time. But in the process of conversion, we are mostly concerned only with the grammatical subject, right? And these two can switch their positions in the passive voice. Second thing is the change that happens to the verb morphology. So whatever the verb with its tense and aspect, it stays intact, but it changes its form to the participle form. And the third one is the by phrase, which you need to keep in mind that this by phrase is an adjunct. It's not absolutely necessary to retain them in all sentences, right? Okay, any doubts here? Anybody? Any questions that you have at this point? If not, we look at the exercise straight. Okay, let's look at this one. The first one you have here. So you're going to identify the active or the passive voices in the given sentences. I'm not going to ask you to make a conversion because your exams don't demand that. You're mostly going to answer multiple choice questions. So not really required. If you can identify them, then it is well and good. You can convert them also, not a big deal. So let's start the first one. So you can either post your reply in the chat or you can unmute yourself and speak to. Both are okay for me. So the first one here is Sotheby's is auctioning a highly important collection of antiquities. What sentence is this, active or passive?
Active.
Active? Yeah, and how did you understand that?
Because Sotheby is the actor, and it is already actor is very clearly mentioned. Sotheby is auctioning a highly important. So since it is in this way,
this is an active verb, right? The
active verb
of an active verb, not passive verb. Correct. Okay. So rest of you who are listening, is auctioning, right? This is the present continuous form, right? So there is no participle form involved here. So definitely this is an active sentence. In the late, second one, in the late 1970s, a huge copper cauldron was discovered in a cellar. Active, passive?
Can I go again? It's like, can somebody else respond?
No. You can't wait for other people to respond. If they want to respond, they'll respond. You can go ahead. No?
It is passive voice.
It is passive voice, right? Was discovered in a cellar. So what is the catch here? You have the verb was discovered. So be plus past participle form, right?
Past participle form. Plus, we do not know who discovered the copper cauldron.
Correct.
So,
yes. Then the third one, inside the cauldron were hidden a number of very beautiful objects.
Passive one.
Passive. Right? Passive again. So you have were hidden. Again, hidden. Yeah, again the participle form of the verb. All right. Now, fourth one, they included silver plates 2 feet across. You have your subject and you have your verb, but is the verb in participle?
It is an active voice, right? It is active.
This is active voice, right? So your verb is in active form. It is not in the be plus participle form. Fifth one, the plates were decorated with scenes from hunting and mythology.
Passive.
Passive, right? Passive were decorated, right? Yes. Apparently, the treasure was made for Suso, perhaps a high-ranking officer in the Roman Empire.
Passive was made. We have the B form of the
Was made
word.
again. You see the B plus participle form. No, not. The difference is that made is not a regular verb, so you don't see an ed there. Instead, you have the regular past form for that. It's make, made, made. It's still a passive form. Was is your B form, so B plus participle form was made. Definitely a passive voice. The Lebanese authorities issued export documents for the treasure in 1981.
Active.
Active, right? You don't see any passive morphology construction here, right? For that, you need to have B plus participle. You don't have that. So definitely not a problem here. Nothing has been revealed about the discoverers. Nothing has been revealed about the discoverers. Nothing has been revealed about the discoverers. You can think about it carefully before answering.
Passive.
Passive.
Yeah, go on.
Passive.
Passive, right? It is definitely passive. Has been revealed. You have has, which takes the tense, and then been revealed is going to give you the participle form only, right? So yes, nothing has been revealed about the discoverer. So if you have to convert this to active, what do you do?
Which sentence? The eighth one?
Sentence number 8.
Nobody has revealed anything. No. Nothing has been revealed about the discovery.
Nothing has been revealed about the discoverers.
Nobody has revealed anything about the discoverer.
Think about it. Okay, this is also some exercise you should know. For other sentences, it is not very tough. When you have your subject and object properly declared, it is easy for you. But when one of this is occupied by a non-noun phrase, then it becomes a little bit of a
Tricky.
task to convert it, right? So nothing has been revealed about the discoverers. Think about what you can do if you are asked to write the active voice for us. I was just curious to know if you have thought about it.
For the other sentences, it was simple. I have already thought, but this one is a tricky one.
Yes,
So
yeah, that is why I asked you. Otherwise, I would have asked you for other sentences. It is easy for them. No? These are I won't say special sentences, very normal sentences. It's just that people don't think about them that often. Okay. So think about how you can convert this into an active voice. Has been revealed about. Not now, just, for the sake of seeing what happens with language per se.
How about nobody has revealed? Nothing can be replaced by nobody, right? Nobody has revealed anything about the discoverers. Because nobody becomes the subject here. Has revealed becomes the verb, right? Instead of has been revealed, I am using has revealed.
You can think about it. Think
Okay.
about what will be the subject in the active voice and then decide. Okay. Only thing when you can add whatever you want, but the catch here is don't add anything from outside the sentence. Okay.
Yeah.
That's it. When you're changing from voice to a different voice, or even in the case of indirect speech or reported speech, you just make grammatical changes for the conversion, because this is a grammatical concept actually.
Yeah.
So the thing with grammar is that you can make the changes accordingly, but you shouldn't be bringing anything from outside, which is not a part of the grammar itself. So think hard about it. What's the subject and all, and you can see what it is. We look at the 9th one right now. The discovery site has never been located. This is also another kind of a special type of sentence. Not special, but different from the others. The discovery site has never been located, but what is it? Is it an active or passive?
Passive.
Passive, right? Has never been. So doesn't matter that the never has interfered between has and been. It still remains the same. Okay, the structure still is of a passive verb. Never is an adverb. right? So it does not do anything to the passive structure. Okay, it might come somewhere in between, but it does not remove the passive nature of the verb, right? Has never been located. Because as we know, the adverbs are fluid. You can remove never from there and put it elsewhere also. So it is not something that brings about any change to the grammar of that particular verb. Now, 10th one, nobody doubts the importance of the collection. Nobody doubts the importance of the collection.
Active.
What is it?
Active voice.
Right, active. No passive construction here. Active, nobody doubts, right? So simple present tense. 11th one, because of its strange history, several museums have rejected the collection.
Active voice.
Active voice, yeah, have rejected the collection, right?
Museums is the subject.
No, it is active. Why will it be? If it has to be passive, then it has to have the
collection has been rejected by several museums.
Have been, not
Have been.
have been. Yeah, okay. 12. With an expected price of over 40 million pounds, who can afford the collection? That's a question here. With an expected price of over 40 million pounds, who can afford the collection?
Voice.
So the only thing you're going to pay attention is the second part, right? With an expected price of over 40 million pounds is a phrase that you have added to it. So that has got nothing which will judge your active or passive. Who can afford the collection?
Active.
Active, right? No passive construction here, right? So for that you have to put in the be plus participle form. You don't have anything in the who can afford the collection. That is definitely written in active voice, right? Okay, so you will have mostly identification based question on active and passive voice, right? So the 3 points, the ones that we discussed right in the beginning of the class, should be more than enough for you to understand what active and passive voice is. And of course, the practical function, right? Some kind of writing, particularly in writing, some people in certain domains and areas, you are asked to stay away from passive voice sometimes, okay? So like say when you're writing scientific report, etc., people would say use only active voice, don't write in passive voice, right? So there are certain specific types of writing where people would tell you to avoid passive voice. But otherwise, in media writing especially, you would see a lot of people, especially not more than writing, actually media presentations, right? When you are broadcasting news and all that. This is something that you will very widely see, okay, very commonly see people employing in their speech. Okay, reason being the same. I don't want to take responsibility for anything. I don't want to sound like I am the one who's saying it, but I just want to shift the um, not the blame, to shift the responsibility onto a third agent, right? Or something that is not as easily recognizable as it would be in the active form, right? So the practical function still remains the same, and it's a very useful way, a very useful construction in language across the world, because it helps you to soften, mild down the sentences, or whatever the information that you want to convey to someone, right? So yeah, so keep in mind both the practical importance of passive voice and also how to do it grammatically, right? Okay, we'll quickly move on to the subject verb agreement. I'm not going to go on a detailed discussion on this because you already have had a session on, several videos on this subject verb agreement for English 1, if you had already done that. If there's anything that we require to discuss, we'll discuss as we move along the sentences. If there's anything particular to the questions that we have today, we'll discuss it then. Otherwise, let's just continue looking at it. Subject verb agreement, everybody would know. Anybody who doesn't understand? Most of you will, right? You have already gone through these. Okay. So the first one, fill in the blanks with the appropriate forms of the verb, right? So you need to choose the verb that agrees with your subject. So he dash his neighbor jogging.
Sees.
He sees, right? Sees. So this is fairly simple one, doesn't need much of an explanation. He sees, right? So your third person singular always takes sees. So she sees, he sees, it sees, right? Second one, he dash know what,
Doesn't.
sorry?
No, ma'am. Doesn't know.
He dash know what kind of exercise to do. He doesn't, right? He doesn't know what kind of exercise to do. Okay, so we are applying the same principle here. Okay, so except if you're using the present tense, then does, right? Otherwise, did, and for plural, you're going to use do. Here you have singular subject, so he doesn't. Exercise for the middle age dash considered a prophylactic. Exercise for
Exercise is considered a prophylactic.
exercise for the middle age is considered, yes.
Is considered a prophylactic.
Is considered again in singular form, right? So,
Too many people end up with artifacts.
sorry.
Too many people end up with artifacts.
Okay, next one. Too many people end up with heart attacks. Okay, but why not ends?
It is already plural.
Collective noun used in singular
Yes.
form, right?
Yes.
Fifth one, to undertake an exercise test dash prudent.
Is prudent.
Undertake an exercise test dash prudent.
Please.
Is okay, to undertake an exercise test is prudent. Sixth one, the test dash your level of fitness. Singular subject. The
Yes.
test determines.
Determines.
Yeah, determines your level of fitness. A singular subject, no?
Is there a
Usually the
noise?
test dash after a physical examination.
Comes.
The test comes after a, so all of them, no matter what, how long your subject phrase becomes, if the subject is singular, then definitely the verb also has to be singular. That's the idea being conveyed through the sentence. Seventh one, eighth one, finding out what your heart can do dash the goal of the test. Finding out what your heart can do.
Is the goal of the test.
Is the goal again, right? A complex subject phrase, yet the function that it performs is mostly singular. So the subject, sorry, the verb also needs to be singular. It's finding out what your heart can do is the goal of the test. Ninth one, most tests dash a treadmill.
Use.
Now use because you have a plural subject here, tests. So most tests use a treadmill. Some clinics also dash a bicycle. So is clinics a singular noun or plural noun? Do you say
Clinics is a plural noun.
plural noun? Sure.
Sure.
Okay. So then what's the answer? Some
Use a
clinics
bike.
Use.
some clinics also use bicycle. Walking on an elevated, fast-moving treadmill. Dash hard work.
Yes.
It's a hard work, right? Again, this is also an example of having a complicated. So this is a subject which has a participle in it. Walking on an elevated, fast-moving treadmill. Participle phrase. So again, the idea is no matter how complicated your subject looks, if it is singular, then the verb will be singular. Okay, having too many words together will not change the nature of the nature of the number of the subject. So walking on an elevated fast moving treadmill is hard work. Now 12th one, the doctors constantly dash your heart rate.
Monitor.
Monitor.
Right? Interfering adverbs don't bring any change to the subject. On the basis of the test, the doctor dash likely to recommend an exercise.
Is likely.
Sorry?
Is likely. Is.
The test, the doctor is likely to recommend an exercise program. Okay, correct. To take up a regular program dash discipline.
Requires.
Requires. 15. Exercise improves the heart dash it. Question tag.
Doesn't it?
Exercise improves the heart, doesn't it? Okay, singular form, so doesn't it? That you shouldn't overexert yourself dash without saying. Again, that clause as your subject. But
Goes.
yeah.
Goes without.
Goes. That you shouldn't overexert yourself goes without saying. On the other hand, we dash too little exercise.
Do.
We do little exercise. Can't say we does, right? Plural form will have to take do. On the other hand, we do too little exercise.
There is some noise. Is it only for me or is it for everybody?
Sorry?
Yes.
There is some kind of disturbance.
Yes, there is.
Somebody's mic might be, if they're participating, then we cannot really do anything.
So while
Just
speaking,
make
they can
sure
speak
that
at
away from the source of noise so that others aren't disturbed. So, we dash want heart trouble at our age.
We don't
Not.
Don't want. We plural, no? So we don't want heart trouble at our age. Okay. Then both science and medicine dash to preparing athletes for competition. Both science and medicine
Contribute.
to
both science and medicine contribute or contributes.
Contribute. Without the S. Without the S. Contribute.
Okay, so you don't treat this as compound subject?
Both science and medicine, it's two things, right? Science and medicine contribute to preparing athletes.
What is the subject in the sentence?
Both science and medicine.
And is that a singular subject or a plural subject?
That's a plural subject. That's two things, right?
No, I'm asking you. Depends on, not depends. I wanted to see your understanding.
It is plural.
It's plural. Anybody else with a different understanding, or you think, no, this should be treated as that it should be treated as singular subject?
I also think it is plural.
Okay, so if the sentence was it dash both relaxing and exciting, how would you say?
It is.
It is. So why is it that you're not saying it? Okay, it is would be a different construction. Okay, let's look at a different sentence. Okay, so the child dash both clever and beautiful. Then what
The child is.
Is or was, right? So how did you make that how did you make that decision?
Because we are talking about the child.
Talking about child.
Child is singular, right? So child is singular, you're talking about the child, so you have to use is and was. And in this case, you have both appearing in the beginning of the sentence along with two different disciplines, right? So you don't treat them as singular ones. So you'll have to write what? Both science and medicine contribute, right, to preparing athletes for competition. So this is a case where you're going to treat the subject as compound subject, right? So in compound subject, what we mean is that the subject is definitely going to be plural. If something is compounded, it's one plus, right? So this is the case where you're going to treat the subject as plural subject, and hence your answer is going to be contribute. Both science and medicine contribute to preparing athletes for competition, right? So just be mindful of the subject. That's it. What makes the situation serious? That no new antibiotics have, 20th one, been discovered in the past 15 years. What makes the situation serious? Is, right? What makes the situation serious is that no new antibiotics have been discovered in the past 15 years. Okay, so this is more or less our discussion on this one. I just, the point here is just that even if your subject phrase looks really, really complicated, like in the case of a that clause or in the case of a participial phrase, if it has a singular function, okay, the subject performs mostly as a singular subject, then the verb is going to act accordingly, right? Which means it's going to be singular. But if you have compound subjects, okay, it changes in the case of or. Okay, keep this in mind. If or comes in, then your verb is going to be singular. Whereas if and comes, you're directly, indicating that the subject is one plus. It's compounded now. In that case, it has to be plural, and so the verb also takes the plural form, right? So this is the basic thing. Whatever interferes between the subject and the verb, if the subject remains singular, no matter what its length and size is, it's going to take in a singular verb. All right. Any questions, any doubts that you have from this, from the passive voice or anything?
No, ma'am. Can we do the what do you call it? The assign, not the graded assign. Sorry.
Sorry, can we do
The activity questions.
activity questions?
Yeah. So there is one question called adverbs and adjuncts are lexical elements of a sentence. Okay. Can you explain what lexical elements are? I saw the video, but I would like to get a little bit more clarity.
Just a minute, huh? Okay, what is this question?
Adverbs and adjuncts are lexical elements of a sentence.
Adverbs and adjuncts are lexical elements of a sentence. Yeah, and then?
See, lexicon means a dictionary or something like that.
No. Lexical elements means, the content words that you see in a sentence, right? So there are lexical elements and functional elements in a sentence. Conjunctions, prepositions are function. They have more functional role to perform in the sentence, right? Whereas adjectives, nouns, verbs, adverbs, they're all lexical in nature. They're more word-like, right? That's a difference between lexical and what is that? Functional. Okay. The functional words will not have a meaning on its own, but lexical words will have meaning on its own. So if I say is or are or was or were, these are all what? They're auxiliary verbs, right? Okay. Auxiliary verbs don't have a meaning of their own. Okay. But if you look at main verbs like action verbs, they'll have a meaning on their own. Especially, and then things like conjunctions. What does that mean? We don't know.
No, it has no meaning.
What is so? What is but? They don't have a meaning on their own independently. So they are mostly used to connect. They have their functions, grammatical, functional roles to perform. But when I say apple, apple has a meaning, orange has a meaning, or beautiful has a meaning, never has a meaning, right, on its own. So those kind of words are referred to as lexical words, and the ones that do not have a meaning on their own, they're mostly used to perform certain functions in the sentence, like conjunctions, prepositions, right? They're called functional elements. Right? So your question, adverbs and adjuncts.
Adjuncts.
Oh, I don't know why adjuncts are put together with that. Adverbs are definitely lexical elements. Okay.
Quickly, fast, quickly.
Yes. Yeah. They are. Adverbs are definitely lexical elements.
Adjuncts can be, even without them, the sentence will make sense.
Adjuncts can have lexical elements. So, but then they're mostly prepositional phrases and all that. This I'm a little confused about this. I'll get back to you on this.
Okay.
I do not know if adjuncts can, as a group, be called a lexical thing. Okay, because adjuncts could be usually phrases, words. It could be sometimes. But let's just give me a moment. Let me think about it. Verbally. Oh, actually, yes, I think they can be lexical elements. But anyway, I think it is lexical, but I will confirm and get back to you. Okay. Yeah. Phrases, clauses, but can you look at phrase and clauses lexical? They can. Okay, at the moment it looks lexical to me, but I'll see if we can give more, better explanation to why adjuncts are lexical. It is lexical actually. So, but I think it needs a little bit of explanation. So we'll get back. You can, post it in the forum somewhere, right?
Okay.
So that, so one of us can respond to it in detail. Okay. All right, but it is lexical. I think so. I'll write a better detailed explanation for why it is. So then, yeah, what other questions? You have anything?
No, that will be all.
That's all? Okay. All right. All right, then if no more questions, then we can close. I'm done with the activity for today. We'll have one more session sometime the next week. Same time actually. That would mostly be the last session we'll have for Learn the Rope. The last few weeks, I think it's mostly on writing and listening and other things. So we might have been already, I think I've covered most of the grammar of the course. For English 2, mostly it is done. If you have any doubts still pertaining to any topics, you can, of course, use any of the 3 medium you have, the forum or the session or the live session. Okay. All right. So thank you. Then I'll meet next week again.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sure.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right.
Ma'am, this time any audio?
I heard no. From what I've gathered, I don't think there is listening comprehension this time. No audio. All right. See you all.
Thank you.